As part of any celebration of the Chinese New Year this year, the Year of the Pig, food plays a major role in the festivities. Joining us now for a closer look, Anne Hui, the Global Mail's national food reporter and the author of Suey Nation, the Legion Cafe, and other stories from Canada's Chinese restaurants. It's so nice to meet you.
Hi, Nam.
Congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
So your book looks at the presence of Chinese restaurants in small towns across the country. When you were growing up, what role did food play at Chinese New Year?
Chinese New Year is all about food. There's a number of different meals that are associated with certain days. So in my family, the equivalent to Chinese New Year Eve was the big meal. It's the night before the day. Big family meal. And Chinese are all about kind of symbolism. So each dish was meant to symbolize some kind of a good blessing or fortune for the year to come. So some of the dishes that were always standard at these Chinese New Year meals would be like fish, because the Chinese word for fish is a homonym for excess or bounty.
Good fortune.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So having a fish at the dinner table is meant to symbolize, a good year coming forward. A whole chicken, and that would have to be served at the table with the head still attached. Which was a little terrifying as a child, but now I understand the whole chicken is meant to represent, again, this idea of like completeness, of wholeness. So there were all of these dishes that were meant to carry with them good blessings for the year coming forward.
Well, in the book, we discovered that your dad was actually a really good cook. He ran a restaurant. Are you a good cook?
I like cooking a lot. I enjoy it, but I am strictly a hobbyist. I would not put myself on the same level as a professional like my dad, who cooked for decades.
Well, your dad owned a Chinese restaurant, and in the book, you go through two different towns throughout the country. And in researching your book, you and your husband, Anthony, you were driving in a very small car to get to these places, and you ended up in Alberta in a town called Vulcan. And that has to do with like Star Trek, right?
Well, so the name didn't originally come from Star Trek. The town has existed for many, many, many years and was already named Vulcan. But like many of those railway towns, their main industry, I think for Vulcan, it was wheat, over time has diminished. And so sort of around the 80s and 90s, they were looking for a way to bring in tourists, to bring in visitors, to kind of revitalize the town. And it was around then that they made the connection between the name Vulcan and the show Star Trek. Vulcan is like a kind of almost like a species or a race on Star Trek. Right. And so as a town, they made this collective effort to really capitalize on that. And they've gone full Star Trek themed. So everywhere you drive in the town, there's like Star Trek murals. There was at the time a Star Trek museum. There's, a bronze bust of the actor who played Spock. It is a fully Trekkie tourist destination.
Right. Well, and also in this town, you find out that there's a Chinese restaurant.
Yes.
And about this place, you write in your book, when you got there, Anthony piled his plate high with chow mein, fried rice, and a few onion rings. He's not Chinese. And as much as he was always game to trek out to whatever latest Shanxi-style noodle shop or Taiwanese hot pot restaurant I became obsessed with through the years, the chicken ball and fried rice Chinese still held a special place in his heart. This was a Chinese food he grew up with. It was what he still craved from time to time, turning to me every few months to say, "Can we go get some good fake Chinese?" Is Anthony correct in referring to that food as fake Chinese?
It's something that I still struggle with, because growing up in Vancouver, I had access to like amazing, authentic Chinese food. So these were dishes that were very close to or similar to the types of dishes that you would find in China or in Hong Kong, where my mom grew up. And so at the time, I would hear from a lot of family members and a lot of relatives that, this chop suey Chinese, these other dishes that are called Chinese, but don't actually originate from China. So I'm thinking of like chop suey, sweet and sour chicken balls, deep fried wontons, these chop suey classic
Or even
dishes.
ginger beef, right?
Ginger beef. I was always told that these were fake Chinese, that these were somehow lesser than the authentic stuff that we ate at home, and often described as, fake Chinese. But as I took this trip and as I met these families and I learned about the history of this cuisine, where it came from, the values that it displays, it illustrates, this was a cuisine that was essentially made up by this group of Chinese immigrants, these men who, most of them weren't trained cooks, most of them didn't have access to authentic Chinese ingredients. They were essentially making up an entire cuisine, building livelihoods and lives out of these made-up dishes. And I just think that the values that this cuisine is based on, perseverance, entrepreneurialism, endurance, ingenuity, like they're at once Canadian, but they're also so traditionally Chinese.
And they did this for a reason too, because I guess it was a combination of combining Chinese food with Canadian, I guess, palates, or to try to introduce it to people?
Yeah, so when most of these dishes were introduced, there weren't enough enough of a Chinese community to necessarily justify authentic dishes. There just weren't that many customers in most of these towns. And so they were selling this food to mostly white Canadians, who many of them hadn't really been exposed to a lot of these flavors, a lot of these different dishes, a lot of these ingredients that we would associate with authentic Chinese. And so essentially they were making up these dishes that they thought white Canadians would like. So often this meant, sweetening dishes with ketchup, adding sugar, maybe food coloring. They deep fried a lot of things for that texture. So again, it's this fusion between, some hints of Chinese ingredients, Chinese flavors with kind of Western flavors at the time.
And even when you started writing, because the book is from an essay you wrote for the Global Mail, even just you wanted to find out why there were so many Chinese restaurants, and then sometimes in obscure places. Was there a reason for that?
Yeah. So essentially, the big question I was looking to answer with this road trip was, why is there a Chinese restaurant in pretty much every single small town across Canada? And what I learned from taking this trip and from speaking to history profs is that a couple of different things happened. One of them was the building of the railway. There were many Chinese men involved in building this railway. And when that work was done, a lot of these men wound up staying in either the railway towns that they had been working in, or maybe they would move to a town over from there, but essentially they stayed clustered in those towns. So that was kind of the start of it. And it's no coincidence on our road trip even today that a lot of these Chinese restaurants that we visited were still very close to the original CN rail stations. But over time...
CP, I think?
CP, sorry. But over time, as these Chinese restaurants became more established, maybe the original owner would bring their son or have a son or bring their nephew over from China, train their nephew or the next generation in these restaurants, and maybe that next generation would feel ready to start a restaurant of their own, and so they would move to the next town over.
So it kind of became like a family business.
Exactly. And so you would see out of these original railway towns, the railway town is like this at the center. You would see this like network of Chinese restaurants that would start spreading out from each of these towns. And that happened over time, over the course of many, many decades, to the point where now there is pretty much a Chinese restaurant in every single town.
Let's talk more about the food and some of the recipes. I mentioned ginger beef before, but ginger beef itself is not an authentic Chinese dish. So what's its history? How did it become to be?
So the owners of the restaurant, or the family of the owners of the restaurant, Silver Inn in Calgary, I think it was the 1970s.
Yes.
They
George
were,
Wong?
Yes, George Wong. So George was originally from China. He moved initially to London and was working in some Chinese restaurants there, and then they brought him over to Calgary to help with the family restaurant. George wanted to create dishes that could be treated as kind of bar snacks. Like they were really looking to boost bar sales at the time. So he originally had in mind this traditionally, I think, northern Chinese dish that was almost like jerky-like. It was like a very dried, chewy beef dish that he wanted to recreate. But when he made it, he put it on the menu in Calgary, and people were not really into it. So he started experimenting with it, and again, keeping in mind local palates and what he thought people would like in Calgary. And what he ended up doing was staying with the principles of the beef, the thin strips of beef. Only instead he coated it in batter and then deep fried it, he said, like a French fry, so that the outside was crispy, the inside was tender because he had tender Alberta beef, and then he tossed it in this like chili sweet sauce, and it became super popular. And now if you go to any restaurant across
It's served
the
there.
prairies, it's served there.
And it sounds like it takes a lot of creative parts to make this food too, right? Speaking of another food, I love pierogies, I love potatoes, but there's actually something called Chinese pierogies.
Well, so there's a town in Glendon, Alberta, and I'm sure they have more than one claim to fame, but one of the things that they're known for is this giant statue of a giant pierogi in the middle of the town. So you drive into the middle of Glendon and you'll see this like fork sticking up into the air with a pierogi at the end of it. So they're very known for pierogies, and they have a large, I think, Polish or Ukrainian population there. So the town and the locals are very familiar with pierogies. So what the Chinese restaurant there has done is they serve, standard pierogies that you and I would be familiar with, but they also sell what we would call Chinese dumplings, but call them Chinese pierogies there. So you can order pierogies or Chinese pierogies.
It's very creative. There's one more dish I want to talk to you about, and that's Mr. Yu's spare ribs. How did this, when he was in Vancouver, the recipe didn't really translate when he opened his restaurant in Deer Lake, Newfoundland. What happened?
So Mr. Yu was a Chinese restaurant owner. He initially moved to Vancouver, and he had this recipe for ribs that was very, very popular. It was essentially ribs that had been coated in batter, deep fried, served, and so they were kind of crispy, a little bit crunchy. He tried doing that in his restaurant in Newfoundland, and even though it had been so popular in Vancouver, he quickly realized that his customers in Newfoundland were just not having it. It took him a while to realize that what was happening is that because the population in Newfoundland is a little bit older. In fact, I think they have the oldest average population across
the
any
country,
province in Canada. So it was hard on their teeth to have these chewy ribs that he was so used to preparing. And so he just altered his recipe. I think he started braising them instead so that they were tender, would fall off the bone, make it easier for people to eat, and they were a hit.
Did it resonate with you speaking to these restaurant owners? Because that's something that I wouldn't even think about. But if you're moving from one part of the country to another part of the country, in order to survive your business, you have to adapt and make different changes.
It's exactly that. It's just learning to adapt and to evolve. And that's something that I'm very interested in with this book, is this notion of authenticity, because I think with food, especially in food in the last while, people have become so obsessed with this idea of authenticity, of having dishes or ingredients or foods that are exactly the same as they would be in wherever their origin country is. But the reality of our history and of how people kind of live and how of what these dishes show is that
like you bore a little bit from here and a little bit.
It's misguided. Yeah, people are going to move. People are going to be exposed to one another. Cultures are going to rub up against one another. And in the case of chop suey, in the case of so many foods, the results can be, so delicious and so beautiful.
Was there any moment during your trip that you had an aha moment where your mind was changed from what it thought at the beginning of the trip when it came to why these restaurants existed?
Oh, there were so many aha moments. But I think that one of the families that resonated with me most was the story of a woman named Huang Fengzhu who lives in Fogo Island, Newfoundland. She was actually the last stop we took on this road trip. So Fogo Island is, about as remote as it gets here in Canada. It is the most eastern part of this country. It's an island off of Newfoundland, so it's remote, it's very isolated. And I'd learned about this woman's story. I'd learned that she runs alone this Chinese restaurant in this incredibly isolated place, 365 days a year. I knew that I wanted to know why that was. But when I met her and I learned the story of what had brought her here, essentially it was that same story of, wanting to provide a better life for her family, for her children. I learned why she was running this restaurant on her own. It was because, her husband was running the Chinese restaurant over on the mainland, and they figured 2 restaurants would mean 2 incomes, better future for their children. And just hearing her story and then hearing the pride that she had in her voice as she spoke about her children and the lives that they've gone on to lead, talking about their accomplishments and, the different degrees that they've earned and all of the jobs that they have now, it just was so inspiring to see this incredible pride that she had about herself and her story and about all of the things that she's accomplished. It was in fact the opposite of what, I thought I was going to find. She was an incredibly happy and joyful person. And I just thought that story was so amazing and so inspiring.
The book is fantastic. It's a book about Chinese restaurants across Canada, but it's also a book about family and of the sacrifice that people make for to create a better life for their children. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
The Agenda with Steve Bacon is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.